Good day, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, whatever it is at this time that you're listening to this podcast. This is the Zwick's Flicks, the Ed Zwick podcast. This is officially the final-ish episode of Zwick's Flicks. So the reason why I say that, because this is the final theatrical movie that Ed Zwick has directed. He's done other projects that he's produced, executive produced, and even written. With me today for this kind of series finale of sorts is returning three-time guest co-host Doug. Doug, how you doing?
I'm doing wonderful, Ryan. Thanks for asking me on for this. Did I pick this film? I don't remember. I know you told me right off the bat to pick a bunch of films. I don't remember if I picked this one specifically.
I don't know how it fell in your lap. I think it was just one of those things where between you and a few other my close podcasting friends, I should say, but people who podcast and who are friends, I gave you, Kate, and Craig kind of three choices each. You were my first picks, and so you guys all picked what you picked. But there was a few, just because people hadn't seen them or heard of them, where people were like, I don't know that film. And so I think this was that last film where I was like, hey, Doug, I just need somebody for this film. Yeah, I'll be the series finale. And Trial by Fire, I'll admit, if you were to ask me before I started this journey of Zwick's films and to do a podcast about his films, when the idea came to me, I was like, oh, yeah, I'm going to do Ed Zwick films. If you were to ask me, Ryan, before you go on Wikipedia to see how many episodes you're going to be doing, what was his last film, I wouldn't have been able to tell you this answer.
Interesting. Even though you were familiar with his body of work.
Yeah. This was news to me. And it was news to me that this is already 6 years old. I guess 7 years old now, boys, 2025. Yeah. This film came out in 2018. I'm looking forward to talking about this film because I guess I thought because it was such a maybe not a very big box office film, very quiet film, nobody was talking about it that I was aware of at the time. And I'm just trying to think where my life was in 2018. It was a fine life. There's no trauma or anything going crazy in my life at the time. It was just a normal life, because I always measure my life with when did I have the twins? When did I get remarried?
Oh, yeah.
There's always things like that. Like life is like crazy. You just don't think of going to the movies. But no, my life was all in order. But this one totally escaped me. Did you know about this film before I asked you to come on?
No. And I don't think that's anybody's surprise. I am admittedly not a huge movie theater goer.
Sure.
And I've also been on other podcasts that cover movies that I watched for the first time in preparation for it. Watching this in preparation for this podcast was not new to me, but I'm surprised I never heard of it.
As we always do, Doug, we're going to, of course, talk about the actors that were in it. Are these first-time collaborators with Ed Zwick, or the returning people, things like that? What's this film about? All that good stuff. I'm going to say right now, this is all the films we've talked about have been spoiler-ish, meaning we don't avoid spoilers, but we don't necessarily go out of our way just to spoil a film. If the natural conversation is such that we will talk about a scene or a sequence, yeah, we're going to talk about the film. But I think you can watch any one of the films we've discussed and still enjoy it, even if plot points and stuff. But this one's unique because of his 13 films, I think this is the first true crime film that he's ever covered. I'm just quickly, my brain, I'm making that claim, but am I wrong here? I know he's done true films, i.e., of course, Glory was based on true events. He's tackled like true type scenarios, whether it's race related and things like that. But this is a true crime story. Did you even hear about this story before the film?
No, I started going down a rabbit hole a little bit after watching the film on the case, which was absolutely incredible and fascinating. And I started to read the Wikipedia article on the case before I finished the movie, so I knew how it ended.
You and I had the exact same experience. Let me be clear about this. If you like true crime and you like true crime stories and true crime movies, I'm going to spoil a little bit of my review right now because I don't want to spoil this movie for somebody. I guess what I'm trying to say is this is a very good film.
Yeah.
And done very well about a very fascinating story about the death penalty, about somebody who's on death row. Like you, Doug, when I was watching this film, I was so stressed out, I couldn't help myself that I went to the true crime story, read about it, because I couldn't handle knowing what happened to this poor individual. So I'm going to say this now. Stop the podcast now. I appreciate the download. Watch the film if you don't mind the spoilers, because now we're going to get into the outcomes, but because we have to, because the outcome to the case and to his trial it's very important because yeah. Okay. Sorry. I'm all over the place because I'm really glad to talk to this movie with you, Doug, because you're a cop, you're a police officer.
I am, yes.
You're like a sergeant, right? You're still a sergeant?
I am a sergeant, yeah.
That's right. So what I'm trying to get at is you are on the side of law, meaning you've arrested people, you have seen people that you've arrested, I'm sure. Actually, I've never asked this. You've arrested people, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Have you known about these people going to trial that you've arrested for whatever crime?
Not unless I was involved in the trial as a witness. But usually if it's a case that I start, like I respond to the call, and if they don't need me for, let's say it doesn't go to trial, the guy makes a plea bargain, I'll get a notice at work saying this individual was sentenced to 4 years in state prison or what have you.
Have you ever arrested somebody? Because you're not the judge, you're not a jury. That's not your job. Your job is, hey, you're suspected of a crime. We arrest people, one, for their safety, for the public safety, and for further questioning and figuring out like what to do this guy. Because you could be arrested and then let go because, hey, we can't hold you. It's not enough. Go about your day. And buddy goes to work the next day. There's no record. It's like you don't get a criminal record because you're arrested. I think a lot of people think that. They think because you're arrested, you're automatically a criminal. Arresting again is just hey, we're semi-forcing you to come with us so we can figure out what's going on. Sometimes it's for their safety, the public safety, or both. Now, this story is fascinating because here's the scenario, guys. It starts off right away. Kids playing in the yard. House across the street's on fire. Girl runs in and tells the mother, hey, the house across the street's on fire. The main character, his name is Cameron Todd Williams. So this is a real person. Cameron runs out of his house, yelling, my babies are inside. He has a 4-year-old-ish, 5-year-old girl.
Three years old and twin 1-year-olds.
Yeah, very young. And long story short, they died in the fire. And thus he was then arrested, long story short, for arson and murder of his children. Okay. So this movie to me, Doug, was so powerful in its message and the outcome of his trial and the evidence and what happened to him at the end that it definitely made me reconsider the death penalty. I have been pretty much my whole life. I'm almost 50. I turned 50 this year. So I've been a very staunch, like Governor Rick Perry. Yeah, like you come to our state, commit murder, you're going to trial. And after watching this film and seeing the human face, so I guess I'm spoiling it, I don't know if the death penalty is ever worth it if one person dies because of it. That's innocent.
If one innocent person dies because of it.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
The problem is this guy, Todd Willingham, Cameron, whatever, Todd they call him throughout the movie.
Yeah, Todd.
He was known to the police. He's a rebel rouser, a troublemaker, very known with like domestic violence issues between him and his wife.
Yes. Yeah, he wasn't necessarily a saint. That's the problem.
Correct. So the police in this case is they have the guy and then they build the case around the guy.
Yes.
And that's a major problem in policing, and especially when you get to the level where you're taking the guy's freedom away, and in this case, taking his life. Like this is the pinnacle of law enforcement is the death penalty, right? And not just the fact that the police did that, because you can lock a guy up and charge him with stuff, but usually your lawyer's got your back because they'll investigate the case and then they'll have experts that will testify on, in this case, the fire, the electrical wiring, everything that could have possibly contributed to the fire, they would either rule out or use as like a mitigating circumstance. But they ignored all of that because of who he was. He ends up on death row. And then even worse is Governor Perry, who, when presented with this, didn't give a shit because of his political aspirations.
Yeah.
Like this guy was fucked from top to bottom to top. Like he didn't stand a chance.
It's disgusting. They literally have real evidence that he was not. It's not even a question of. In fact, this is the problem with the movie. What the movie is so good at. This is a good problem. What Ed does and what the screenwriter does and Ed's direction does is because I went into this case cold. We weren't even sure of his innocence. We were taking the journey with the neighbors, with his family, with the police, what they had. And I was believing the quote unquote fire experts at the beginning of the film because I don't know fire. So as a viewer, I'm taking the journey as a jury member in a sense of his crimes, of his behavior. And I'm also painting him in the light of this guy. I don't know. Maybe he just snapped. Maybe he just whatever. But as the film continues, And evidence, of course, at the end of the film is given by people who are actual real forensic scientists in the fire world.
Mm.
And they very clearly, for example, the fire pattern on the floor, for example, looked like a pentagram. So they tried to connect. This is, now we should say this was what, the late 80s?
Early 90s, 91.
Yeah. So even the satanic panic of the 80s was still carrying over to the 90s. And they were trying to equate, Doug, that he had put some sort of burning solvent on the kid's room of a pentagram because he listened to Iron Maiden and Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
Now we laugh. Yeah. I just can't believe full-grown adults in a professional field are trying to equate. They're saying there was a satanic sacrifice ritual. This is ridiculous.
Remember, think about it. Back in the early 90s, this was the big boom with music affecting people. Like music, Ozzy was Ozzy was convincing people to kill themselves, and the lyrics in Iron Maiden were satanic. And this was the time when I forgot what they called it. The Music Mothers got the parental advisory. Yeah, the group got the parental advisory stamped on all the CDs that had the nasty words in them. But
who was the wife? She was a famous. Who was not
the wife that spearheaded it?
Yeah, but she was the wife of some.
It was a politician's wife.
Yeah,
Tipper Gore.
That's right. Thank you.
Yeah, so this is rife with that talking crap about music. Like music influences people to do terrible shit. They just built this case around, and me as a cop, like I deal with people like this where they're repeat offenders, where they're always fighting with their wife, constantly arresting them, getting restraining orders against one another, spending hours on paperwork, and then 5 days later they go to court and it's dropped, and then it just goes all over again. The movie especially humanizes him and makes you feel bad for him. So I don't know the real Todd, but he obviously didn't deserve the death penalty for this because he didn't do the crime.
No, even if he slapped his wife around, she sounded like a real treat too. Like I'm not saying she deserves to be slapped around a little bit, but even if a fraction of her behavior was true, which I think it probably was, she was a real peach of a person. In fact, she lied to investigators to save her own skin, saying that, he admitted to me that he killed the kids. Like, whoa, that's murder in my eyes. She sent him to the death penalty.
Right. That was also at the behest of her brother, who was a police officer, and he was making her testify that. It was what an unbelievable story, though. A lot of it, according to Wikipedia, which isn't the most reliable source of information, is pretty closely held to the actual case, the movie.
Well, I want to talk about that. The movie itself was based on a New York Times article, the New Yorker, called Trial by Fire, written by David Gran, written in July of 2018. So I read that article. I don't know if you read that actual article from the New Yorker.
No, I didn't.
It's legit the film.
Including the Laura Dern character?
Which one?
The Laura Dern character.
Yes. Yeah.
Because she seems like the only one that didn't pop up in any of the... I watched a couple of documentaries.
She's a real person. She was a real person.
She was. Oh, yes. She wasn't mentioned in anything, or the Wikipedia article.
Yeah, it's funny. Like when you go to the cast of characters on the Wikipedia page for the film, Cameron Todd has a link. She is a real person. She was in the Frontline documentary I watched on YouTube, and she was interviewed for that. And she's part of this advocacy group for this, I forget what it's called, for proper evidence for the death penalty, to eradicate it and what have you. Her name is Elizabeth Gilbert. And here, another spoiler. She truly was paralyzed in a car accident before the
like on the way to the...
No, that was the what do you call it? That was for dramatic purposes for the film.
Okay. Yeah.
But it was a few months before, so he knew, because in the film he didn't say where is she. So they played it weirdly because he never freaked out that she wasn't there when she promised to be there. Because in real life,
he did write a letter.
Yeah.
That day, like you must have had something important going on.
Right. So a lot of films will take creative liberty. That's the word I'm looking for. Creative liberties. Of course, it's because the storytelling is different for a film. It's a different type of medium where you're seeing these events play out. There's got to be some dramatic and human interactions. But Ed Zwick did mention in an interview, I don't have it for us to listen to, but I did go on YouTube to listen to some of his interviews for this film. And he did say that they had the letters in their hands. Like they actually had the letters on the film. So that was part of their source material, was the actual letters. Fun enough, like Glory.
I was going to say that.
Yeah. So he had those letters and Elizabeth Gilbert letters to Todd, and she looks a lot like Laura Dern. Really nailed the mannerisms and characteristics of Elizabeth Gilbert. So Laura Dern plays, I guess you could say,
she's like an advocate.
That's right. It's like one of those things, the classic, would you like to be the pen pal for an inmate because they're on death row, they have no friends. And she did, and they became friends. And of course, her family's accusing her of writing to a murderer or what have you. They're conflicted by this, but she goes, no, like the viewer, that's it. We take this journey with Elizabeth. We start to see the human that Todd is the same way she did through the letters. And then we see the evidence come in, and there's a part of you at the end there, like, they're going to, because when you're watching the film, even though I knew the outcome, I'm like, no, they got to know that he's innocent. Doug, if you saw that evidence, you would be like, whoa, I don't want blood of an innocent man. Even though I believe in the death penalty, I do not believe in putting innocent men. Even if my political career was on the line, I would like to think, even if my political career was on the line, that I would say I would stay the execution of this person because of the evidence. And I would show the evidence to the public.
They didn't ask for a full pardon. They just asked for a stay of execution for 30 days so they can re-examine the case.
Yes.
That's all they asked for.
Because they had one more kick at the can. They were allowed one more kick at the can.
Right. He had 5 appeals that were denied. He was on lucky number 6, and Governor Perry said, nah.
How do you live with yourself?
I'm telling you, these politicians are soulless. Even, Rick Perry, I don't know him from Adam. Like, I never really knew any of his policies or anything. No. All Texas governors are hardcore Republicans, very right-leaning, very pro-Second Amendment, that kind of thing. But Rick Perry was running for president at the time.
Right.
And it didn't look sexy on his resume to let a death row inmate off, especially somebody of Todd's caliber, who was a career criminal and had his problems and was very well known to the police. So it didn't look good for presidential candidate Rick Perry. So he called the guy a monster. He said, Todd's a monster and he's going to pay for his crimes.
Yeah.
Yikes.
All right. This film is fantastic. And I'm really sad for Ed and the crew and the cast that it made no noise, failed miserably at the box office, like financially. But if you go on IMDb and look at the comments, they all echo what we're saying. People love this film. And you go on YouTube and look at the comments, and people are like, oh, this film was amazing, blah, blah, blah. And so it's just one of those films where there's just not a wide audience, but it deserves a wider audience. And in fact, in one of the interviews they had promoting this film, the interviewer was talking to Laura Dern and the actor who played Cameron Todd, Jack O'Connell, and Ed Zwick on this panel. They knew this film would probably, I would say, fail at the box office. It only had a limited release, and those limited releases are determined if it's going to be a wide release. It didn't make enough unlimited to become a wide release. That's part of the box office failure. But the interviewer asked a very fair question, Ed, saying, like, this film would have been amazing in the 90s. Because back in the 90s, these are the kind of films that did, remember? Like, even like films that were dramatized, like The Firm. Yeah. Another John Grisham one was, of course, The Client.
The Rainmaker.
So those type of films. Yeah, The Rainmaker. So lawyer films and trial films were very popular in the 90s. And ironically, if this film was made closer at the time of its actual happening, it would have done much. This film, what do you think, Doug? Shot for shot, film for film, this would have done much better in the 90s.
I agree, but I also think that one thing that those films had that this didn't was a major star. Actually, no, that's not even true, because Matt Damon, when he did Rainmaker, wasn't a huge star.
He wasn't then. No, he wasn't then. Yeah.
Who was in? The Firm was? Well, Michael Douglas was established, but
The Firm was Tom Cruise. But anyways,
what was the one with Michael Douglas in it?
I don't think Michael Douglas did a John Grisham novel.
No, he did a lawyer, like a big time lawyer film.
Oh.
He was like a Gordon. What's his name? He played Gordon Gecko.
Oh, Wall Street. That was the 80s.
Okay, yeah. Oh, that was the 80s. All right. My bad.
No, yeah, it was Wall Street. But the point is, I got you.
Yeah, strike that last remark, because
no, that's stated in the edit.
It doesn't. So you don't need a household name to star in it. Fair enough. But I know, just to change course real quick, I know you don't normally get deep into like plot with these films. Like, it's more about the background and the actors and Ed Zwick.
Oh, keep going.
But this plot it's way too heavy to ignore. And I stopped researching because I know not only do you not get deep into the plot, you certainly don't get very deep into the backstory either. So I just felt like I was wasting my time by researching a whole lot of it. But
I'm glad you did any research. People should know, for the record, these episodes are heavily researched. We spend hours and hours in preparation for every. That's what makes them such a incredibly well developed episodes. No,
sorry if I broke the illusion.
Yeah, no, this was a fascinating film. Even when I saw the title "Trial by Fire," I could tell with the movie poster, it's like, oh, it looks like this might be a lawyer type film, but it's not a lawyer film. We should make that
right.
The trial, the initial trial that sends him to death row, happens in the first quarter of the film. The last 3/4 of the film is his life on death row and the letters to the Laura Dern character, and we as a viewer start to realize, wait a minute, this guy had a bad life. That's the other thing. He actually had a bad upbringing. The system failed him too as a human. It's a commentary on a lot of different issues, really. Bad upbringing himself, bad education system, bad choices with the mother of his kids. But the one thing that even his wife, played by Emily Mead, named Stacy, even she said that he would never hurt the kids, even despite their physical altercations they did at each other. They hurt each other. Let's be clear. Yeah, the kid's mom, she wasn't a saint. Like, she antagonized him, and not to say, I'm not condoning any physical violence on anybody, male or female, but I'm just saying she and him got into it. Even she said when the cops came, she just tell them, like, yeah, we're just fighting again. So it was one of those weird relations. Right. You might have even seen that as a cop. Have you seen that kind of stuff where you can maybe see,
like, the parents going at it and not really involving the kids? I do see that. However, when you're doing that in front of the kids, that you are abusing them.
Yeah.
All right. And I've actually seen that as recently as this past work week, and parents fighting in front of the kids, like 9-year-old kid, 10-year-old kid. We go in the house and he's crying, you know what I mean? Awesome. But that was another aspect that it broke me, is about the girls that died, because there's a scene where the house is on fire and you hear the girl calling for her daddy, and your dad, I'm a dad, we love our children. And I don't think there's anything that would keep me from getting back in that house and trying to save my kids.
I agree with you.
Then again, we've never been in a fire that hot before. So it's, how do you say that?
And I don't know if this was the documentary or the film. There's a documentary again called Trial by Fire. I forget what it's called exactly, but if you just do on YouTube, Trial by Fire Frontline, it's an hour-long documentary that Frontline did. It's really well done. It just also shows you the movie got this spot on. Like, they really stuck to the facts. But one of the people interviewed, I think one of his friends, Todd's friends, she says something that really struck a chord to me. So to respond to you, yes, Doug, I would like to think it really hit home, because I'm like, ooh, I hear what this person's saying. Because in the film, Todd, the character, the real person played by Jack O'Connell, he says, or he admits to, I forget who he admits it to, the Laura Dern character. He says, I'm guilty of being a coward.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I hear what you're saying, and he feels bad as a father too. He tried to go in and he left. And in the documentary, the interviewing friends and family of Todd, they said something that was very telling. They said, you will say stuff like Doug just said about there's nothing you wouldn't do. But then they said, unless you know what it feels like to be burnt alive, you save yourself.
Yeah.
And it's that human instinct to survive. Have you ever felt fire heat before? Like real fire heat on your body?
Yeah. I've been on scene where houses were on fire and cars and stuff. And it's hot. When you're standing 50 feet away, it's hot.
Yeah. So it is heartbreaking. It's a very hard film to watch anyway, especially when you're a parent. But even the death of children is very difficult. You have kids. I have kids. The idea, Doug, and it's even, you don't even want to start crying even saying it out loud, but the idea of your children right there, you hear them cooking.
Yeah. Oh, God.
I know. But you try to enter the room and you can't. Can you put your hand in a pot of boiling water? You say you could to pull your kid out. Let's just say, I'm not even trying to be graphic, but I'm trying to put it into perspective. When your body is feeling that kind of pain, you recoil. Recoil. It's an automatic defense mechanism. But your body recoils at heat. It just does. And to put yourself into a furnace, I would say it's probably near impossible.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know if it was in the movie or was it in the documentary, but when he was talking about like his kids, he's like, I think it had to be in the movie. He was like, I went in there knowing that my babies were already dead. It was only the 3-year-old that was calling for him because
the
he
twins
already
are
knew
dead. And thankfully, about fires too, and I've done fire training in the military, so I know a little bit, but I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination. But we do firefighting training, and so we're in simulators, and that's what I mean. Even in the simulation firefighting, I'm wearing full bunker gear, and it's propane controlled fires.
Yeah,
and I'm feeling the heat on my gloves it actually hurts my hands still, and my sleeves when I'm fighting with the fire hose, fighting this propane fire. We do like simulation helicopter crashes for crash on decks. And so this fire is very hot and real. No smoke. It's all propane fire. And it hurts me through the bunker gear. Like I feel discomfort and pain. I can only imagine what it feels like without bunker gear on.
No, I can't. I can't imagine. Like I said, I've been on scene, not at the door, but like I've been on scene on fire scenes where it's hot from 100 feet away. Like you don't have to get close to feel the heat.
Yeah. That's what I mean. So when all is said and done, he's guilty of being a coward, and that just breaks your heart because, yeah, when you're comfortable and you don't feel the heat anymore, then you think of what you could have done. I should have just gone in and grabbed. But what's he going to grab? Like,
yeah, I don't know. Believe me, I'm a police officer, so I hate the Monday morning quarterbacks, like what I would have done or what you should have done. So
sure.
I'm going to refrain from that, but it's devastating to think about, like your children and you being even in a situation where you have to make that choice or make that sacrifice or whatever the case is. Yeah, I don't like this movie for it really, because I have young kids, especially my baby who's a year and a half. Like it was
the same age as the twins.
Devastating. It was devastating. So the one other plot thing, the conversations that he was having with his dead daughter, like throughout the film. And I don't know if it was like a coping thing. He didn't seem crazy, so I don't think he was hallucinating. I think he was just coping. But there was maybe 3 scenes where he had these conversations with his older daughter, who the ghost of the daughter was her real age she would have been at the time he was talking to her. Like,
of course, that's right.
She died at 3 years old, but when he's talking to her, she was like 9 years old or so, say.
Right.
But towards the end of the movie, after he gets the lethal injection, I'm watching and I'm like jaw on the floor, even though I knew the outcome. But I was watching it and I was like, you know what would have really made an impact here if they had like the daughter come in, grab his hand or whatever. And sure enough, as he crosses over, you see the little hand grab his, and I started welling up, man. It was like crazy.
Ed Zwick, you bastard.
Yeah, you got me, Ed. First glory, now this. From beginning to end, you got me.
Yeah, he's great at the emotion. He's great at making you feel. And this is why I've really enjoyed doing Ed Zwick's films, because I think he's in a masterclass of his own of making the human experience with all these situations, from war to this, to the death penalty. And I admit I was swayed. I get it. I get why there's a group formed now. From this case in particular, I should say, there is a group that was formed, and a better podcast would have. I heard the name of the group. I apologize. But there's an advocacy group that Elizabeth Gilbert still runs, and she goes on tours and gives talks and stuff.
Something against the death penalty or something like that.
And did you know it's more expensive to kill them than to keep them alive?
Oh, I didn't know that.
That was in the documentary as well. It was
to house and feed somebody for the rest of their life. I thought that was a lot more expensive than.
No, they explained in the documentary. It was either the documentary or the New Yorker article. They explained that the money is. That's what I naively thought too. That it's just easier to chop off their heads and move on with your day. But apparently, there's a lot more involved financially with the killing of a death row inmate than just keeping them alive.
No kidding.
Yeah,
imagine that. Yep. Going back to what you were saying about Ed Zwick, he's. From the episodes that I've done with you, now we're talking about Glory, Blood Diamond, and now this.
You're right. Yeah, you've had some rough ones. I'm sorry. You've had holy smokes, you've had some rough ones.
He is great at extracting those really heart-wrenching, dramatic elements and shining a light on them, really focusing on those dramatic elements. Instead of glazing through them, he sits on it and makes you feel something before moving on. He is masterful at that, at least in the 3 that I've seen. And also listening to your other episodes, there are definitely other movies where he's done that.
Yeah, speaking of other movies, we're talking, of course, last episode we did with Craig, we did Jack Reacher, something completely different than what we're experiencing now. And I think it's funny, we talked about Jack Reacher being the action film, and Tom Cruise probably just said, hey, Ed, you want to get another hit on your resume? You've had a few misses last few films as far as box office is concerned, not quality of film, but just numbers. And he probably didn't feel any real emotional connections. So again, it's interesting watching this film. We're back to that sort of independent filmmaking style, simpler type film. Watching this, Doug, I admit I went in this with low expectations because I knew this was his last film, and I knew it didn't do well numbers wise. So I went in with probably a little bit by the numbers type film or whatever it is. And I was like, no, Ed, keep doing these. Do another one for Netflix or Apple TV or something like the.
Yeah.
And now, granted, he's older now. He's not a spring chicken anymore. I think he's 70 at least, if not 70 something. But you just get older, your energy level gets lowered. It's natural.
He finds these diamonds in the rough stories, though. It's interesting the ways he came across the Glory story and the Blood. I keep going back to those because those are ones I've done with you. But the stories that he finds, either reading an article and something will click and he'll say, I can make a movie out of this. And he does it well.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I
don't know. I wish he would do more of these because I'm turning into an Ed Zwick fan listening to all these. I want to see a lot of the movies that you've covered that I haven't seen before. Like just your coverage of them made me want to follow up and check them out.
That's fantastic. I'm sure he'll be happy to hear that.
Yes. People contact his people.
Man, I would love to interview him. I don't know how to get a hold of him. I follow him on X, and I'm able to tag him when I do these episode releases. I tag him in the photo. Like, he gets tagged. It's not like he has 5 million followers. So I don't know if he's even aware. If he's who's this guy? What? Some idiot needed a podcast after me? What the?
You can't DM him unless he follows you back.
That's right. Yeah, I think he might be retired, and that's fine. He's 72. There's no shame in that. He's had a huge career, 40 years in the industry. It's okay. You got to hang up your gloves. It's okay. And he's 72 years old. This is his last film. I'm even looking at his producer credits and executive producer credits. This is his last kind of hurrah regarding films. He's had a couple things in TV. He did something in 2020. It was a TV show called Away. It was a Netflix show. He directed an episode of that, but that's about it. Apparently he was the executive producer of the show called Nashville from 2016 to 2018. But even then, that was during this time. So he might just be retired, Doug.
Yeah, when you're directing, what are you giving up 10 weeks of your life, 12 weeks of your life to
just
get
edit
the film? Yeah, I don't blame him. But it takes him nothing to get on the horn and let you interview him, though.
I know. If anyone who's an Ed Zwick fan is listening to this can put a bug in his ear on my behalf as well, saying, talk to Ryan, because I think it'd be fantastic. And I even thought about maybe going through the list of the movies we've done and maybe just start bugging some. I hate to say it, like, obviously I'm not going to get Leonardo DiCaprio on the horn.
Yeah.
Maybe some of these other just like side actors.
Jack O'Connell, maybe him.
Maybe, seriously. And so now let's get to the cast. Speaking of, we were doing things backwards today, but that's fine. Of course, directed by Ed Zwick, his last film, 2018. The person who did the music of this film did the Jack Reacher film as well. That's Henry Jackman. Serviceable, another serviceable soundtrack. Nothing like Glory or Legends of the Fall. Those are once lifetime type films. But you talked about the cast. The only name I knew was Laura Dern.
Same.
Yeah. I didn't recognize anyone by face. So this was a hugely independent film in that sense, which is great that these actors get a chance to work with Ed Zwick, to get their name on a resume type thing. Let's start with Jack O'Connell, who played Cameron Todd William. I'm a new fan of this young guy. I want to see other stuff he's in. He's from England too, by the way. So accent. Yeah.
I thought he not only an American accent, American hillbilly accent. I thought he was incredible. He played the asshole white trash hillbilly country bumpkin. Right. He played that part, the angry guy. He played that great. Then he played the heart-torn dad who lost his family. He played that well too.
He's going through that array of emotions, meaning from first angry that he's in jail, pleading for his innocence, but resigning to his fate, embracing his fate, becoming a bit of a guru in his own way to even the guards. I love that whole story arc with the guard, right?
I know. That was tender.
It was nice, and again, I don't really want to spoil. We won't spoil too much more of that because I don't know if that really happened. That might have been again just for story purposes, but the show that we as the viewer kind of went through that journey with the guard. We're like, yeah, this guy's guilty. He's an a-hole, and he probably did do something or some sort of neglect. Oh,
call him baby burner, baby killer. Like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was.
Yeah, it's horrible.
He was treated very poorly when he first went to jail, and then throughout the course of his prison term, him and the guard actually became friendly, and right to the end where he was giving him words of encouragement when he was going into his final, I don't know, lethal injection.
Yeah, that sounds pleasant. Okay, I got a couple questions for you. You're on death row. How do you want to be killed?
Probably lethal injection.
You think so?
I don't want to be electrocuted. I don't want to be hung.
Yeah. Oh, hanging's the worst. The idea of your neck breaking, even though apparently it's supposed to be instantaneous when it's done properly, but I've heard too many horror stories of it not quite working. Yeah.
I also hear that the lethal injection like hurts, like burns you from the inside out. I don't know how.
I don't know. Who did they interview for that though? That's weird.
Yeah, I know. Maybe the experts that know what the chemical cocktail does. Who knows?
And I'm surprised they should feel anything. Why can't they put them out? Like we can put people up for heart surgery. Why can't they do the same? Why can't they just literally put you out and then pump you full of like Drano? Like who cares?
At that point, who cares?
Why feel anything?
Yeah, cut my head off. Just as long as I'm out cold, who cares?
I think guillotine, that might be the most effective way because it's just a big razor blade comes down at 100 kilometers an hour or miles an hour. You're gone.
Yeah, that might be the most one of the least humane, but maybe the most easy to deal with. I don't know.
What about Utah? They still do the shooting.
I heard that. Is that a fact?
Yeah.
The firing squad? That's ridiculous. Like you can choose that, right? It's not their number one method, but you can choose it if you're the death row inmate.
Yeah. Oh, is that right? Okay. I think lethal injection might just be the way to go. I think I'd rather just feel the burning.
Yeah. Like the most humane, I guess.
Not to be all morbid to people, I apologize. But look, I think you're not human if you don't ask yourself. I'd rather drown to death than be burnt alive. Things like that, right?
Oh, God.
Drowning, though, you're panicking. But at least it's not that painful. It's a bit of a panic, I think, when you're suffocating, but then you just black out.
Yes. I think just suffocating in all is probably a brutal way to go. Like
but then again, smoke inhalation is also not that bad because it's the same idea. You just get blacked out.
Yeah.
You get knocked out.
Oxygen. That's different than burning alive.
That's the thing. Nobody really burns alive. I think the smoke knocks them out first. I think that's the hope. Unless you're literally being put, I hate this, an oven with no smoke. But
oh God.
Okay.
All right, we'll talk off air. But yeah, that's gonna be bad.
Okay. Oh yeah, and then the other question I had for you, what would a little bit more lighthearted question here? What would be your last meal?
I thought about this too, and I really don't know. I love a good juicy steak, but I eat steak quite often, so I don't know if that would be a good last meal. I have no idea. I guess if you're on death row, you have time to think about it. When you're spending years on the row, you might have missed those nice, juicy, like that really expensive one from Japan. Wagyu? Maybe one of those, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I think I'd ask for probably sushi.
Yeah?
Yeah. Okay. Because that's something you could eat a lot of. And just there's a lot of sushi with a lot of soy sauce to dip it in. And then for dessert, I don't know, maybe like a chocolate chip mint milkshake.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, you got to go with the ice cream.
Yeah.
You're sick. You might as well.
So yeah, Jack O'Connell, he looks like he's got a budgeting, blooming career, whatever the word.
Burgeoning.
Thank you. Bludgeoning. He's killing it. All right. He's 34. He's done some stuff. He's in the new film coming out called 28 Years Later, the sequel to 28 Days Later, the zombie film. So he's in that one. Yeah. So good for him. I'm looking forward to that. Yeah. So he's in that one. He was in Ferrari. See, it's funny. Ferrari's directed by Michael Mann, who was another director that I tossed around of doing films for. The same idea.
Oh.
Yeah. Another director. He did Last Mohicans, Miami Vice, Manhunter. And so Michael Mann has a kind of a really cool, a Heat, of course. So I don't know. I might even do that one first. I really wanted to do, Michael Mann was my second choice before I thought of Terrence Malick, actually. Yeah. All right. So anyways, Ferrari directed by Michael Mann. He was in that as well. So if I do a Michael Mann podcast, we'll be covering Jack again regarding that. Okay.
Yeah. It doesn't look like he's a marquee name on it, though.
No, probably not.
Adam Driver's in it.
Adam Driver is in it. Great last name for a Ferrari movie. He's 6 in the film, so it's not like he's not nothing, but you're right. Yeah.
Okay.
Adam Driver plays Enzo Ferrari. Penelope Cruz. Can you believe she's already 50? Yeah, good for her. Good for Tom Cruise. Okay. Remember when they were dating Cruise? When they were,
yeah.
Okay. Laura Dern. I didn't have any real, like before the film, any real thoughts on Laura Dern as an actress, good or bad. I've seen her in things.
Mm-hmm.
But after watching this movie, I will say she is an actress. I would like to see more of her stuff. I thought she was fantastic.
I agree. I don't know her range, so to speak. The main things I know are from her Jurassic Park and Last Jedi. I've probably seen her in other things that I really didn't pay that much attention to her. But the thing that I really noticed about her in this film was the evolution of her interactions with Todd. The first time she goes to meet him, she's reserved and shy and very quiet and shy giggles and stuff. She didn't know how to approach the meeting. And then you see her evolve into really caring for this guy. But the way she acts it, like her first meeting with him, it's also a visual thing because she's withdrawn physically. Yeah. But yeah, no, like I thought she was great. I thought she was great in this.
Yeah, she was really very good. In fact, she doesn't pop up until the last half of the film. So like, when's she coming in? Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was perfect when she came in. It's done very well. It's almost like the second half of the film is their relationship. So the first half is how did he get there? Why is he there? What's his life like? Mm-hmm. And then she comes in like a saving grace. It gives him a bit of that second reason to live, so to speak, because his wife doesn't visit him. His kids are dead. But I love, there's one scene that I really loved where, of course, she's a female, she's attractive, and he's just a man, and she comes to visit him. I think they both have this little bit of pen pal crush. It's never really verbalized, but it's there.
Right.
He's a handsome guy. He's charismatic. She's getting attention from him, and he's getting attention from her. But it's funny. He asks her, remember, to spin around in her dress. Yeah. She doesn't do it, though.
No.
What do you think of that scene where she says no? I thought it was also very realistic where he's trying to tell her to spin in her dress for him, and she says no, but then they still just continue their relationship. What do you think of that?
It's to be expected. You're on death row. You have zero contact with the outside world, which also means you haven't seen any females in this case, years. Right. So when he first meets her, she's an attractive girl. And the second time she comes to visit him, she dolls herself up. So she did. Did
you notice that she had makeup on and stuff? Yeah.
So he does probably with what anybody who hasn't seen a female in 6 years or however long it was. He asked her to stand around and do a twirl for her. And it visibly made her so uncomfortable that he realized he fucked up. Yes. So he just dropped it and never mentioned it again, which I think is the way to go. Shoot your shot, cuz. And if it doesn't work,
shoot your shot.
And if it doesn't work, recognize it and just don't make it uncomfortable again.
Great interaction between the two characters. Even though you guys who are listening to this know the outcome of the trial, the outcome of his life, please watch this movie. You'll be amazed by the acting alone. The actress who plays the wife, Stacy, played by Emily Meach, she was great in it. Every character or actor does a great job. And I think in some ways you maybe had to have unknowns. Laura Dern's no unknown. She's the marquee actress. But the actor who played Cameron Todd, it's good they got an unknown because you can't have, obviously, I don't know, let's say somebody that age because he's young. Like the real life person was like 22 or no, it was like 21 or 2.
Oh, yeah. But I think he was 36 when he actually died.
That's right. So you have to get an actor that look young, but then look in their 30s at the end. But Jack O'Connell's only 34 right now. So he was 7 years ago, he would have been 27. So that's kind of the perfect age there. Yeah. I'm trying to think of an actor. I don't know. I'm trying to think of someone who's young that could play that wouldn't be quote unquote popular, like a marquee name. So they got the right person.
Emote, though. Yeah, they definitely got the right person. You have to have somebody that can really show that range of emotion. I think going with an unknown, because you could put a face on this guy, whatever face you want, because it wasn't a major story. So you don't have to find somebody that matches his body size or type or anything. You could have fun with it, but you pick anybody as long as they can act it.
We should also mention the film was adapted, of course, with Zwick as per normal. He does part of the adaptation, but it was credited to a screenplay by Jeffrey S. Fletcher. And of note, he's only done 3 films, this guy. his first film was a big film he wrote, Precious, in 2009. That one made waves. If you don't know if you remember that one, Precious. So he wrote that film. Now, that was also adapted from a novel, but he wrote the screenplay for that one. Then he did one called Violet and Daisy in 2011, and then this one in 2018. So that's it for his filmography. That's all he's done. But as far as films, those are the 3 films he's written.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's again, that's Jeffrey S. Fletcher, a Harvard graduate. So now we're going to get into, I think this is the one little blip. And this is the last one we'll do for this podcast series. It's sad, but here we go. The last little blip from the audiobook.
Alan Stewart and Alex Soros knew how much Trial by Fire meant to me, and together as producers made it happen. We were proud of adding its voice to the rising chorus of those speaking up against capital punishment. If I'm not smart enough to work with Laura Dern again, I have only myself to blame. Our collaboration was a love fest from day one. She is movie royalty.
High praise indeed, and I'm really happy to hear that. I'm not surprised. Sometimes you can get that with actors. They're just humans like us, Doug. They're just human beings. And just like any kind of coworker or even the teller at a grocery store, you can gauge people's aura. And you can just tell with Laura Dern, even just as she's playing a character, you kind of sense from her that she seems like a really sweet, great person. And I saw her in a couple of interviews regarding this film on the circuit back in the day when this film came out. She just seemed like a great person to talk to. She seems like a really sweetheart of a person. Yeah.
And her character matches that. It also raises the question of karma in a way, for lack of a better phrase, because her character has done nothing but good in this situation to spend her own time to help Todd. And then she ends up in a crash and getting paralyzed. Where's the justice in that?
That's what's crazy. When that happened, I Googled that right away. You got to be kidding me. Really? This lady who's helping this guy on death row, she gets paralyzed in a car accident? Yeah. It just shows you this whole case. The dead children, the innocent man to death row, the person helping him gets paralyzed.
Yeah.
It's like
everybody involved got the shit end of the stick.
Yeah, on the good side of things.
Yeah, the bad people got away with it.
Yes.
The investigators, the prosecutor,
the governor,
the judge, the defense attorney, like even him, piece of shit.
It's weird. And even the criminal who lied on the stand to get him. He got away through. He had his freedom.
He tried to cleanse his soul, though, at the end. He wrote a letter to the district attorney who put it in a drawer.
So Laura Dern of note, she's 58 now. Do you know who her parents are? Did you know this?
Bruce Dern. I did not know that.
Yeah, Bruce Dern. And Diane Ladd are her parents. Did you know that?
No, I didn't. Are we idiots for not knowing that? Because it's like right there in her name.
Especially with the Bruce Dern and Diane Ladd, her mom.
Diane Ladd.
She's Hollywood royalty. You can look her up, folks. And she was married for 8 years to Ben Harper.
Have you seen young pictures of Laura Dern?
She's hot?
Knockout, dude. Knockout.
Oh, she's an attractive. I mean, she's
an attractive older woman, but
yeah, for sure. I remember from Jurassic Park, and that was the funny thing about Jurassic Park was the criticism that not she faced, but Sam Neill, her husband, is so much older, which is not against the law, but their age gap is quite big. Yeah, she's very pretty.
I'm not one to weigh in on an age gap.
Oh, yeah. What is the age of Sam Neill? So she's 58 now. What's the age of Sam Neill now? That's the question. Let's see here. So if they were still married, let's pretend their characters were their ages. Okay, so yeah, he's 19 years older. There you go.
Hits the nail right on the head.
Is that how much older you are?
I'm 19 years older than my wife.
Oh, you're Sam Neill. Your wife's Laura Dern. So when you're 77, Samantha will be 58.
56, 58. Yeah, 58. Yeah. Throw away.
Wow. Yep. Look at that. You are Jurassic Park. Bravo to Sam. Bravo to Doug. Okay. Yeah. That's fantastic. Okay. Boy, I guess I'm just talking on my butt now because I don't want this to end, but this is the last film. Yeah. I'm torn because I'm really excited about doing the same thing again with different directors. What I might do is at the very least announce that I've done that on this feed for those other films. So stand by for a Michael Mann. I think that will be the next one. And,
what you could do is It would require changing the name of the feed.
I know, changing the network to like the Directors Network or something.
Yeah, and just like season 1 was Zwick, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
you could go on
you know what? That's true. You can change the feed name.
Mm-hmm.
You can change the feed name on
season 1, Zwick's Flicks.
Yeah, you're right. You know what? That's not a bad idea considering that our buddy Craig has done Brian De Palma. You could actually add him to the network, and you can you could make him his own season. He could be season 2, and then season 3 could be Michael Mann type thing. Yeah,
last of the Trauma Directors Network.
So don't cancel your feed, folks. It might just be easier to some degree to just retitle the podcast to call it the Directors Network podcast or something like that, or some sort of network regarding directors. Because I think
we'll come up with a name.
We'll think of something. Yeah. So if you cancel the feed, it's your fault. Yeah, because I think it might just be easier.
The party ends. It's definitely easier. Then you're gonna have 100 different feeds for 100 different directors.
You're right. I could just change the. It's probably just easier to change the title of the show, and this is season 1. So okay, here we go. So there you go, folks. This ends season 1
of insert network name here.
That's right. It could be this ends season 1 of the Directors Network podcast.
Yeah. Seamless.
Well, seamless. So if you have enjoyed the journey of Ed Zwick and you feel like you're up to the task to volunteer and come in on the Michael Mann, I think I'm going to make this official because it was my second pick officially was Michael Mann. So if you want to come on the Michael Mann journey, hit me up on the socials, on the email that's in the show notes, or you can just Google my name, hit me up. I'm pretty easy to get a hold of. Doug, thank you so much for coming on. I guess can I invite you to join me on the Michael Mann season?
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. I feel like I can't say enough about this movie. Like I just want to keep going on and on. But what a swan song! If this is his last film, it just sucks that it flew under the radar because it's such a phenomenal wrap up. It's heavy. This is a movie that you don't watch more than once or twice because it weighs on your soul. But everybody, man, top to bottom, did a phenomenal job in this. And thank you for making me watch it and being a part of the discussion.
It was my pleasure. And I'm really glad that you were here for that as well, for your perspective, for your side of the law perspective, your journey with that and seeing that part of the world. Highly recommend this film. In fact, all of his films, I highly recommend. And maybe I could do even a bonus episode. Actually, that's what I'll do, a bonus episode by myself. So stand by for a bonus episode where I'm going to rank my rankings of these films.
All right, cool.
From top to bottom. Yeah. I think that would be a fun exercise. So stand by for that bonus. And then I'll definitely have the new name for the podcast by then. And so that'll be under the new moniker and plugging season 2 with Michael Mann. So there you go. I forgot I was going to do that, actually, that I was going to rank the film. So stand by for that. And I'd be interested to hear if my ranking falls in line with some of yours. Okay.
Heard it here first, folks.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Doug. And thank you, everyone who joined us for Zwick's Flicks, his feature films on this podcast season. Thank you.
Wonderful.